Today's a fun topic. We're talking about the risks of doing business internationally, which I do a lot because I have 23 employees in the Philippines and I reside in the United States. So what are the risks of doing that? Or if you have clients overseas, what are the risks? Is there anything that you need to be concerned about? We're going to cover that here. Now there are several things that we're going to discuss in this video, and I want to use the word challenges because doing things overseas poses a lot of challenges. And when you do business internationally and you work with people overseas, I've narrowed it down to 8 different challenges that we have that we need to navigate through or that we need to understand so we have proper expectations so that we can be successful and be protected ourselves. The first one to discuss is kind of obvious. It's the distance, right? So if I'm hiring somebody in the Philippines, that's on the other side of the planet. So if I needed to give them some materials or a training manual or give them access to computer equipment or something, I have to ship that. And that becomes complicated because shipping things in the United States has a delay or it has complications, but shipping things internationally comes with a whole bunch more problems. And if you want to gather people for a team meeting, I mean, we know virtual meetings now. Through the pandemic, we learned how to use Zoom very efficiently, but we've also learned of the benefit of having people gather in person, right? We dealt with it through that time when virtual was all that was possible. And now we're in a world where there's kind of a hybrid. But when you deal with people overseas, it's got to be 100% virtual. And depending on what time zone you're in the United States, whether you're Pacific or Eastern or Alaska or Hawaii, right, you've got to coordinate, okay, what time is it in the Philippines? Now, I specifically like to hire people in one country. There's a lot of reasons why I only hire people overseas in the Philippines. I've got other episodes where I go into the benefits of that. But think about it this way. If I had somebody in Mexico and somebody in Brazil and somebody in France and somebody in Bangladesh and somebody in Japan and somebody in the Philippines, adds a whole nother dynamic. Culturally, language-wise, language barriers, time zone just becomes really confusing because it's like you have a team meeting and it is not the same time for anybody on the team. Now, I've gone to the Philippines a couple times and gathered everyone for an in-person meeting. We've been able to do excursions together, hiking a volcano or doing an escape room, having meals together. So if I had a team scattered all over the planet, yeah, that wouldn't be possible. And even if everyone around the globe spoke English, like English was their second language, there's different competencies or proficiencies with speaking English, and you want everyone to be on the same page. Or imagine if there's internal communication and I'm not involved because I only speak English, but they're able to speak to each other in their native language. Somebody from India and somebody from the Philippines wouldn't be able to do that. They can only use their second language. So I guess when we're talking about the risk or the challenge, I mean, language is a challenge, especially if you're hiring somebody to do writing or commenting on social media. Or in my case, they're doing the transcriptions or the subtitles on my videos or text effects on my videos. So when you understand what the challenges are, then you need to find, okay, what's the solution or how do I mitigate this challenge? So I talk about the Philippines because the English there is far superior to English in other countries where English is their second language. Let's talk about another challenge though, and that's paying my team. Paying my team internationally is kind of challenging. I've had to jump through several different options that have come and gone over the years. PayPal has been a staple. It's been something that I can count on. However, it's kind of expensive. The exchange rate that they provide and the fees that they charge are higher than normal, and the amount of time it takes for my team to receive their payment once I've sent them their money through PayPal, it's not ideal. So PayPal has always been a good backup option. Now currently, my favorite is a service called Wise. It was bought out. It used to be called TransferWise, and now it's just called Wise. But there is a chance that might disappear. There's more options of getting a debit card set up. You have to deal with banks in foreign countries. So this is a challenge. And right now I've been able to mitigate that with wise.com. One side note to mention is if I had employees here in the United States, I'd have to deal with taxes and withholding for them and Social Security and paying all these things. And I don't have to do that. When I have independent contractors, whether locally or overseas, but all my team overseas are independent contractors legally, they're responsible in their own country to file their own taxes. So I guess that's kind of an advantage where you just don't have the paperwork. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do the tracking. When I do my taxes, I have very clear records of who I've paid what to and how much and when. And so it's very clear when we file our taxes and send that information to the IRS, but it's way more simple than if I hired people locally. Now, when you hire somebody locally, you have an employee agreement. You have this contract that you sign. Now, I could technically give a contract to my team overseas and have them sign a contract, but we're in different countries, and legal things like, am I going to fly over there if something goes wrong? Like, contracts are pretty much worthless with somebody overseas. So just understand that if you're used to having a non-disclosure agreement or some type of a contract, just consider, are you going to be able to enforce that? So why do it? Now, I have a company policy and we have expectations, and of course we create an atmosphere of honesty and trust. I just wanted to set you up with a proper expectation. If you want to hire somebody overseas, you don't need to worry about a contract. You can hire somebody for a trial assignment and pay them for that work, and if they do a good job, hire them for more. Let me share another challenge that's specific to the Philippines. Now, in the Philippines, they have typhoons, all right? Or they'll have power outages. So where we are relying on electricity and we're relying on the internet to be able to communicate and transfer files back and forth, when you have a monsoon that comes through or just terrible weather and there's flooding, I've had team members send me pictures where there's water, up above their knees inside their home. Like, yeah, those things are real. And if there's a power outage, or there's even a planned power outage where it's like, we've only got so much electricity, so this zone over here is going to have power turned off for these few hours, and then this zone, like, you just got to plan for that. Those are challenges you have to predict that we might not experience as much here in the USA. Now, because of great websites like Fiverr or Upwork, a lot of these are just project-based hires where they're just going to do a task and it's meant to be more short-term, kind of like freelance type work. But I want to let you know that there really is an opportunity of hiring people long-term. One of my team members has been with me for 13 and a half years, and two of my project leaders or my team leads, they've been with me over 10 years each. So while a lot of people look at overseas work as being more short-term and you don't get to really have longevity in your company, know that that's actually not the case if you do it right. And I'll link to other videos up here that talk to you about how to find the right people and how to hire them and train them long-term. Now, in my business, where we film a lot of videos, I produce over 50 different YouTube channels, we have a lot of data, a lot of video files that are tens and tens of gigabytes each day that we film, and how do we transfer those? It's been a little bit complicated. Fortunately, there's services like Dropbox that I've been able to rely on over the years, but that's a challenge of transferring things overseas and having them sync with computers and stuff like that. Even Dropbox lately, they've been having a lot of hackers or just unconventional businesses like Bitcoin miners and stuff really abuse their system, so there's had to be regulation changes or rule changes for users like me to put limitations on it. I could only imagine if I had to film things in like 8K and I had much larger file sizes, how much more of a problem that would be. So based on my experience of hiring people overseas for 13 and a half years, really there's not a lot of risks, right? There's some challenges that I've had to navigate through, but the risks that I would really be concerned about would be the same if I hired somebody locally. People in the United States, you have the same risk of working with them, of them being honest or dishonest as you do in another country. You're going to find honest people and dishonest people. So you've got to use common sense in all scenarios and do things to protect yourself, but whether they're overseas or not really doesn't add a whole bunch of risk.